Okay. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Hi, everybody. It is. It's morning for me, and it's morning for Rob here. So I think that matters. That matters. We're both in the morning. Hi, Rob.
Hey, sorry, I was just trying. I don't know if you're doing the blue sky thing. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna just make sure I got sent out a message on there about us talking real quick. But
Okay.
I am trying to find the link to our discussion here. Let's see here.
That's okay. Um, I uh, I am doing the blue sky, by the way, everybody. If you're doing it, I am starbucksman.joshlong.com. That's how you know it's me because it's got my authoritative DNS.
That
Don't have to pay.
speaking of authoritative, that's
Don't have to
pretty
pay
relevant to
LNS for that.
security. I love how they're doing the verification by domain name.
Yeah, it's DNS.
That's so cool. So
Yep.
cool
I
because
mean,
it's like anyone can be verified, using
yeah,
DNS. It's
things
super
that you've
awesome.
already got. It's like you
Yeah.
know how they have this movement to measure metric measures, or sorry, imperial measures. They want to tie imperial measures to things that you can reason in the
Yeah.
universe. Like there's no like fiat measures anymore, right? Like they're trying to get rid of that so that a measure is based on, for example, the rotation of the planets around the sun. You can reverse, you can backwards engineer some of these measures.
Yeah.
Same thing for this. Like to the extent that you trust that my domain is me and that I am worth trusting, then my blue sky handle, which is tied to my domain, is also me. You
Yeah.
know.
I love that sort of simplicity because
Yes.
it's something that people already understand on the internet, and if they don't, then they're already kind of host. So it's like you learn one thing and then you get, kind of two things, well, hopefully even more things out of it. But yeah.
Right. And especially with Elmo, you've got those blue check boxes which mean nothing anymore, right?
Oh
They used
yeah.
to mean
It means you've paid some money.
right. Which is, and he kept on saying that's going to remove spam. I was just like, just gaslighting. It's just pure gaslighting. Like
Yeah.
if you view my passport and confirm that it's me, then that means something. That means the checkbox is actually
Right.
verified, right? But
Right.
that's no longer what it means. It just means
Yeah.
that there's a blue checkbox. It's they painted pixels next to my name because I paid them money, which is useless.
Right.
Um, I'd actually pay money to not have that, but have everything else, right? I don't
Yeah.
want to lie to people about the verification because that's no longer true. I was verified before because I showed them my driver's license. They
When
knew
you were
who I was.
verified. Yeah.
Yeah, legacy. But anyway, I love Blue Sky for that. Mastodon. How do they do that? They have a way to do it as well, but it's not. I like the Blue Sky approach.
I couldn't get very into Mastodon, honestly.
Yeah.
It was a little, I think it was just a little earlier is all
Oh,
when I did it.
the way that you got verified there was by, well, first of all, you might have had multiple accounts, and those accounts were based on the Fediverse, right? You were tied to a server. So
Yeah.
like the Spring team could have had a Mastodon instance at
Oh, you
Spring
had to have
Valley.
your own server to do that.
Yeah, which is,
Okay.
but by definition, if you have an account at that
Yeah.
server, you are Rob Winch of the Spring security
Yeah.
team.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I quite like the middle ground that Blue Sky provides. It's
That's nice.
anyway, so where are you on the Blue Sky? Do you want people to find you there, or is that just
Oh,
like a
yeah, I guess that is a thing to be done now. I am at robwinch.bsky.social. So I'm using
oh,
kind of the default domain. I don't have we got all into like this cool domain verification, and and I haven't
you
done my
haven't done
own.
it?
I haven't done my own domain.
Yeah, okay. Well, but this is, I got a video of you saying that's you, and
Yeah.
this is not AI as far as anybody knows. Uh, let's see. That's the problem. Is actually like even if I have a video of you, you know, it doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily.
I think the other thing too is like on my, if you were following me on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it these days, I have it pinned where my
Oh yeah.
profile is. So that's the other way to,
Oh, but
unless
yeah, but
Twitter
there's
got hacked.
but how do I know that's actually you on X? Is like
Yeah, I mean that's a good question.
there's no
Yeah,
authority
Yeah.
No certificate authority.
Yeah,
Home.
but I mean, the thing is if I got a domain, how does anyone know that domain is me? Because like
Yeah.
I haven't
Exactly.
really established that brand. Like that. Like if you've established your domain to you, then that helps. But if like anyone could sign up for a domain that looks kind of Rob Winchy and claim, hey,
Yep.
it's I own that domain, but is it really me? It
Exactly.
really only verifies the domain.
And
So
this is a real pity because like and those padlocks on in a domain, that just tells you that the certificate belongs to. Actually, I don't even know what that tells me. It just tells me
it means
that
someone has a private key. It has a
right, but that's
private
the
key, and the
bingo.
private key is for that domain.
Right, but that's it. That doesn't tell me
Well, and it
that that
means that
domain
someone,
is
yeah, it means someone, it means that someone that you trust, one of the CNs, uh, basically signed a certificate that says that you own this domain. That's basically what it amounts to.
but it doesn't tell me who you is, right? It just
No, it doesn't. No, it
like
doesn't.
I could have motherteresa.com and
Yeah.
there's no guarantee that
Yeah.
that's actually Mother Teresa. It just
Oh,
means that
yeah.
the person who bought motherteresa.com owns that domain.
Right. Yep.
Oh, it's all lies. It's all built on a
Well, I
house
mean,
of lies.
that's the fun thing about security is like you got to know what the threat model is, and therefore, once you determine what that is, you know what your like what you're trusting, basically. Like
Yeah.
you have to have some sort of trust at some layer.
Well, now that everything is AI, now that I can actually create a video and text to accompany that video, all from whole cloth based on a prompt,
Yeah.
how do you ultimately establish trust unless you're actually there in person, talking to people and saying, this is my,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's all so
And that
feeble.
doesn't
So
scale
anyway,
super well unless you're you, because you're like everywhere.
against that backdrop, tell me how I should feel secure, Rob. Job has gotten a lot harder, I
Well,
think.
now that we've explained why you need Spring Security, because the world is a terrifying place, let's talk about Spring Security.
On that bombshell, yeah. Yeah, I mean, okay, so we have this. So you're the lead of Spring Security, are you? Is that
That's what I'm told. That's what I'm
okay?
told.
Look, I'm smitten with the new 6.4 release, which you can get if you go to start.spring.io and bootstrap a new project with Spring Boot 3.4, which just dropped like 2 weeks ago, and Spring Security like 3 weeks ago before it, right?
Yep.
That new release 6.4 plus, I'm sure if you're watching this in a year, it's probably moved on since then, but that release is a banger of a release, like a ton of new things in that release. Huge fan, big fan.
Yeah, it's.
Um,
I'm very excited about it as well.
hi. I love the purple.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually great. I'm happy with that. So congrats. That was a huge release, right? Like I mean,
Yeah.
that feels like it's a lot more than just 6 months of work. We'll get into that. That feels like it was that release, that hit. That was a big release. You could have strung some of those releases out, and I don't think anybody would have felt deprived. But that one was huge. I'll go so far as to say I think that's my favorite release of Spring Security, maybe since the OAuth stuff first landed. No, not
Ooh.
even that. Maybe it's my favorite release since the OAuth stuff was all like complete. You had the OAuth reserve server and
Oh yeah.
client and
Yeah.
OIDC support, right? Or maybe it's my favorite release since the DSL, like the Java DSL,
Ooh.
15 years ago,
That was
or whatever.
that was a while.
Yeah, it's a huge release. I'm gonna put this one up in the record books. It's a big release. There's just a bunch of things that expand the universe of things that I can do with security. So congratulations, I guess is what I'm
Oh,
trying to
thank
say,
you.
and
Thank you.
to you and the team.
It's I was gonna say it's not just me, it's the team and the community as well. So thanks to them.
Yeah. So can we talk about the community? I mean, this is the other thing is I know that the Spring Security team responds to stimuli, right? To prompts from the outside. What I mean, we have. Let me just home row reset here quickly. Spring Security 6.4 has smart interceptors for token exchange in the REST client. in addition to the REST template, we have refinements on the component model for meta-annotations, so that you can actually, so that you can both create meta-annotations and also detect and scan for them. It has SAML support, improved SAML support through
Yeah.
OpenSAML 5,
Yep.
and it has magic links or one-time token support,
Yep.
which I use interchangeably, perhaps irresponsibly. And then it also has Passkeys / WebAuthn support.
Yeah.
Anything other huge things that I'm forgetting?
No, I think those are really the main highlights. There are some other refinements here and there, but those are kind of the key takeaways, I guess.
Right. So which of those were driven from external stimuli, like external prompts or input or whatever? I
Well,
like.
I think in large part, it's Spring Security always is driven by external stimuli. If you think about it, like one-time tokens are a thing for one-time token login is a thing that has you see out in the wild. So we're not out inventing these concepts. We're observing them and they're becoming popular and people are asking for them, right? So we didn't invent OAuth. We're
Right.
observing it, and we didn't invent reactive. We wanted to integrate reactive with Spring Security so that people could secure the reactive apps. So
Yeah.
like by and large, we're responding to outside stimuli.
Yeah. I mean, so the WebAuthn stuff. Oh wait. Okay. We got a question. We got a question. It is. Okay. Gerger Self. Hi guys. Quick question. How easy, difficult is your internal process to backport fixes to CVE reports across previous versions of Spring and Spring Security? I'm gonna just assume that there's an answer for that, but I don't
Ah,
have it.
I have it.
Okay. Woo.
Yeah. Whew. So yeah, I mean, I think it's not much different than what you would expect um, from like the open source world, other than for the for the uh, like if it goes to commercial support, we just have a private repository for that. So if you have like a bug fix and you need to backport it, then we basically put it in the oldest version that it needs to be supported in, and then we just do a merge. Use git merge to merge it into
Imagine.
those. And if it's a CVE report, there's the tickets are created using GitHub's security advisories. So you just go out to github.com/spring-projects/security-advisories, and that GitHub repository is used for all of the projects. And we really just did it as a single project rather than separate projects because by and large, it made our lives easier. There's a lot of reasons behind it, but one being, I kind of represent like some of the team members that triage the security advisories to help the other Spring engineers know what's going on and how to proceed and stuff. So it helps it make it easier for me to see it
That the
versus
one?
spread across all. Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah.
Across other portfolio projects. The other reason is oftentimes, especially with CVEs, it can be difficult to understand where the CVE actually lies. You'll be running a Spring Boot project and it looks like it's in this part of the code, but the underlying CVE might be kind of hidden somewhere else. And so with CVEs also, it's hard to transfer the issues. They don't really have that support. So there's a lot of reasons, but the summary is it makes it easier for the Spring team to have it in a single project in a single location for all
Right.
the portfolio projects. Once you've created your issue there, you interact privately with the Spring team and they resolve the issue. Kind of like I said, there's a private GitHub repository associated with that issue, so you can kind of collaborate with them. And then on the release day, the code is basically published to the public GitHub repository at the same time as Maven Central, and as the same time as we announce the CVE. And commercial support, it's pretty much the same thing, except for it goes into the commercial repository, which is private.
Right. And you can to which you can get access if you buy commercial support. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so that was a great question. Okay, so back to the main thread there, which I've seemed to have lost.
Passkeys, I think, was
yes,
what you were talking about.
Passkeys is not a new thing. It shipped in 6.4. But I happen to know that represents at least 5 years of like passive R&D.
Yeah.
And what was the wild hair that sort of drove that initial git commit,
Yeah. I mean, to Josh's point, we started on this research quite some time ago, back before it was called Passkeys. It was just WebAuthn. And if you follow my
explain what that is, by the way. I don't.
Yeah. So I mean, WebAuthn is more of a standard built on standards built on standards. So you and then Passkeys is built on top of that. So it was kind of like WebAuthn was kind of unheard of, and it kind of still is, because it was rebranded by Apple when they came out with their support. And it's really becoming more and more popular these days. You see it like on GitHub, and like lots of places, our social media, and what it is it's a way that replaces the password on how to log in.
Yeah.
And the way that works is when you basically you associate a public key to your account. And Josh, I'm sure you're familiar with public keys, but for those out there that are wanting to know what is a public and private key and how do they work, a public key is just that, it's public. Anyone can have it, right? And a private key is just that, it's private. It should only be held by the owner of that account. And so when I want to sign in, I log in with my account. If I give someone a public key that they know is my public key, and they know it's my public key because maybe I logged in with a username and password first, or I associated the public key at the time of account creation.
Right.
So once I've done that, they keep that public key on their server. If they get breached, someone stole my public key, it's no big deal because it's a public key. Anyone can have it. It doesn't really do anything that the public can't do.
Right.
And then on the private side, whenever I want to authenticate, I can use that private key to sign a message saying that I am Rob Winch, and then the server basically can use the public key to verify that I am that signature came from the private key. And that's really what it amounts to.
Are they two inputs to like an algorithm, like a formula?
Yeah. So you have the public and private key are a pair, and whatever with the private key, whatever I sign with, it can be verified. The signature can be verified with the public key, but the public key can't sign anything meaningfully. What the public key can do, though, we aren't using it for this, but the public key can be used to encrypt something. So if I want you to send me a secret message, I could give you my public key and you can encrypt it with the public key. And then on my side, I can decrypt it with the private key. So the encryption makes it secret, and then I can reveal the secret with my private key. The signature is a way of providing authenticity. I sign it with the private key, so anyone that can use that signature to signature plus the public key to verify that it indeed whoever signed it had the private key.
Right. Okay. So all that to say, having that key tied to a password feels like a miss because there's so many of it. the key is what matters, and if you can link it to some other thing that's easier to get or come by and harder to duplicate and replicate and disseminate, then why wouldn't you, right? And so
Yeah.
maybe your fingerprint, maybe your face, maybe
Well,
your iris.
so I think you still need to associate it to the account somehow. So like if you already
Yeah.
have an account, like the only way we can verify that we want you to be able to add a passkey is using your existing password, right? Like,
Right.
so if you create the account, technically you don't need a password. You could just use a passkey. You could just account creation, use a passkey and not allow the user to do a password. Now, do
Right.
I recommend that? That's a different story. But yeah, you can just have them do, okay, just go ahead and do it that way. And you can also do like things like, oh, just trust my email and send me like a magic link, going back to the magic link stuff.
Yeah.
But the thing that Passkeys really gives you, there's a couple things, and one of them is through passwords. We've had like this battle of like, can I crack the password versus how do I keep it secure? And one of the ways that you protect passwords is by hashing them through a one-way hash. And those one-way hashes these days are, in order to keep it secure, you need to make it resource intensive.
Right.
And resource intensive, I mean, it could be like CPU bound, it could be memory bound, it could be a combination thereof, but it's going to take a lot of resources. So like a regular user trying to log in is actually taking a lot of resources, which
Does
is
that mean that
unfortunate,
Slack is
right?
very secure?
What's that?
Does that mean that Slack is very secure?
I believe it does. I think
Okay.
Chrome is as well. But yeah, so the thing is it takes a lot of resources to validate that password. So it makes you a little bit more secure, but it also provides a way for users to do like a denial of service attack against your
Oh, right.
service, because they're like, oh, well, it's taking a lot of resources. So if we just type username and password a whole bunch, it looks like valid traffic, but it's actually taking up a lot of your resources. And
Which is a
so
pain
like,
because I wanted to use that CPU for Bitcoin mining. Like the fact that I have
yes,
to use
oh yeah,
cryptography instead is
yeah,
a
you could be
problem.
making money off of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the thing is like like passkeys, you don't need to worry about that secure storage, because the public key is actually allowed to be public. Anyone can have it, and you're just as secure. And it also solves against other problems like phishing.
Right.
So whenever the passkey is sent across the way, first of all, the key is separate, like should be distinct per domain. But even if it's not,
Ooh. Oh, right. Okay.
it includes the domain in whatever it's sending across the wire. And so if you have a site called bank.com, and
Sure.
that's where you're trying to log into, and someone else says, oh, I'll create a new one, bank, without a C, like I'll do bank with a C instead of a K, or a CK, some sort of
Right.
typo sort of thing.
If you
And
did bank with a C, that's the French word for bench. And frankly, that would be a cool website, I think.
I wonder if it exists. Huh? World may never know.
We'll never
It's
know.
impossible to check.
Yeah, it's
Impossible.
impossible.
But
There's no
anyways,
knowing it.
if you had some sort of typo in the domain, and someone was trying to phish you, it wouldn't actually work, because if they took that signed artifact and sent it
Yeah.
over to the actual endpoint, it would reject it because it had the wrong domain in it. So that's another really good thing about passkeys, is they're phishing resistant.
So in practice, what does that mean? Like, we know that we have the ability to change how we link keys, but what is the day-to-day experience of somebody using passkeys? How does that change compared to logging in with a username and password?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing you're really thinking about is you can no longer manage your credentials without something to store it, because you can't just memorize a private key, right? The private key has to be stored. And if you have more than one device, you need something to sync it across devices. If you're using you're using like a password manager, oftentimes those password managers will sync it across the devices. You know, like Chrome has it built in, like 1Password will have it built in, has it built in. If you're using Apple products, they sync it across their your devices as you log in. And the nice thing is it's all done securely. But if you're a little concerned about like, well, what if I can't log into, what if I can't recover these private keys so that I can sign in? You know, that makes some users a little hesitant to do passkeys. And what's more is like I've done a lot of presentations on passkey support, and I asked, how many of you are using passkeys? And this is in a room of developers, presumably, because I doubt bankers or anyone else is coming to a Spring Security talk or or a passkeys talk or whatever. Like my expertise is software and software security, so there's not any people coming to these talks that aren't interested in security. And usually there's like 2 or 3 people out of a couple hundred in the room that are using passkeys. And so it's like, well, how's grandma going to be logging in with the passkey? She's not used to this yet. So that's why you probably you can't just like flip over to passkeys right now. And it's also a reason why, well, you can flip over to it, but you can't just only do passkeys, right?
Okay. But also, look, if you took a 4-year-old who's never done passwords or anything, and from the jump you just said, okay, well, when you want to log into a website, you put your finger on the sensor.
Right. Well, the 4-year-old's going to figure it out easy. It's not the 4-year-old that we're worried about. It's grandma, right?
Well, grandma's smart. I don't know. Because she's used to the old way is why it might be confusing.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong. Like it's hard to change. The kids are like, everything is new to them, right? So like that's why it's easy for them. Like you hand them the latest technology and they don't need a manual. They don't need anything. Like they just figure it out. But you hand something to someone, I'm not trying to pick on grandma here. It's just hard for humans to change. But kids it's hard to change. And so kids they're used to change. It's like every day in their life, because like they've never seen like half the things that a grown-up has seen. And so like it's like, oh wow, that's amazing, that's new. They're like they're constantly learning and changing, so it makes it easier for them.
But it does feel like if you said, hey, in order to access information in your game or your Facebook profile or whatever, you have to remember this long, opaque, randomized string of characters. That's not going to feel very natural. Whereas if you said, hey, your eye is what grants you access, or your finger, or
but it's not just your eye, right? It's that private key. So like you think about it, like so let's just imagine a scenario, right? You're traveling and you lose your phone, right? And at the same time you lost your phone, your credit cards got stolen, and you need to like log into your bank account to like make sure nothing crazy is going on.
Backup password.
Like how do you get into that? Like if you don't have your phone, how do you get it? Like you can't go to like a shared computer and try to log in because there's no way to access it without your account. And so like in some ways that's good, in some ways it's bad. Like why is it good? Well, that shared computer could have a virus on it. So you go in there and type your password and like, whew, everything's safe. I'm so glad. And then you like log out and you walk away, and the person that installed the keylogger is like, not safe anymore. And then your savings are wiped out, right? So like in some ways it's like, well, that was a good thing. But in other ways it's like, well, the person that stole your credit cards and stuff is now still using them, and you have no way of like deactivating them through like a website. And so I think that's the area that people get a little nervous about, is like, I lose my device, I'm traveling, like I only had one device with me, what do I do? Right?
Yeah, but also like if they have the keylogger scenario, there is no such thing as an eyeball logger, right? Like that hacker may have stolen the phone, and they may have even done the keylogging, and they may have access to my system via that password. But
well,
eyeballs are
yeah, no,
mine.
you're safe. You're safe if you're using passkeys, right?
Yeah.
But the problem is if you're using passkeys, you can't get into the bank site to begin
Right.
with.
Right.
There's no way to actually get like you can't. You're safe, but you're so safe that you can't get in yourself. That's the problem.
Yeah, and there's no way to reproduce it. So you need one password. Is I guess what I'm saying. You
Yeah,
need
well,
an
and then
ultimate
in
password.
1Password, you would need your recovery kit with you too, right? Because it
Right.
has that, it has like the, what you type every time, the 1Password, but it also has like the setup kit that you need that you might not have access to, right? So that's the concern. And there's less secure password managers that allow you to store passkeys without that. But then at that point, someone could steal your master password, and then you're kind of like everything is compromised at that point because they logged your master password for this password manager, and now they have access to everything versus just the bank site.
So let me steer this in a different direction then. So let's say I want to build a Spring going back to the very concrete here. I want to build a Spring-based web. I've got Spring MVC, and I want to let people log in with a username and password to set up accounts. But then on subsequent runs, I would like it for them to be able to use, let's say, their fingerprint on a Mac, or their Face ID on an iPhone, or their whatever, your YubiKey or something, so that they don't have to constantly enter the same password over and over again, right?
Right.
And they don't have to remember it either. It should be written down somewhere, safe, like in a password manager, but they don't have to constantly worry about it. What is what's the technology I would use to do that, right?
Well, so to be clear, it's there's a subtle difference between this, but I think it's an important distinction to make.
Okay.
The passkeys can enable that, but it's through, we talked about like who are we trusting, right?
Yeah.
And so like the private key is really what the web server is trusting.
Yeah.
The end application. But in order to get that private key, you can instruct like whatever is managing that private key, please ask for a fingerprint, please ask for a Face ID.
Right.
Because the server will never get your Face ID, it'll never get your fingerprint, and that's somewhat by design. You probably don't want to send that over to the server, right?
No.
But that's like kind of like just it's a trust thing. Like please do that.
Is that a bit of indirection? Basically, Mac OS asks me for my fingerprint, and then that it exchanges that for a public key.
It allows you to access the private key, right?
Yeah.
So the private key is what you're using to sign in. The public key is like stored on the server, and anyone can have that. Like it doesn't matter about that. But in order to get the corresponding private key, Mac OS, 1Password, etc., is asking you for some sort of credential to prove you're you. It might be a fingerprint. It might be your device's password. It might be your master password. Like any of those things are fine to exchange. And when you do that initial setup, you can kind of give some like hints as to how you want that to behave. But like how it behaves is totally up to whoever's storing the private key. One moment, I'm just gonna close my office door here real quick.
Okay. Well, this is good stuff. I'm all this sounds pretty complicated, honestly, if we're listening to this. But what you need to know, dear audience, is that now in Spring Security 6.4, if I type in, if I use create a security filter chain, and I use the HTTP security DSL, and I just type in .webauthn.
Do you want to try it? Maybe we could just show them.
This is a podcast, sir.
Oh, it's a podcast.
Yeah.
I'm in the wrong spot.
It's a video podcast. No, well, it's a vodcast. It's just all they don't need this. It's actually, this is the genius of this. Okay, Rob. Okay, I wouldn't have asked you on here if I thought this required a lot of code. It's 3 lines of Java code.
It is very easy.
3 lines. You specify the RP ID and the name, and then the host or whatever.
Origins.
Origin. Yeah.
Host is very similar. Yeah.
I was just testing you.
I'm glad I passed. Did I pass?
You specify those 3 things, And then Spring Security, assuming it has the ability to authenticate by a username and password, will let you register a passkey, which is to say the public key, right? Like, that's cool. It's super good, right? Like I can actually build a web app, and in no time at all, if I'm on a Mac, for example,
Yeah.
they can register a passkey and they can use their fingerprint, or if they're on the iPhone, they can use their Face ID, or if they have a separate hardware dongle, a YubiKey,
Yeah.
they can use that and plug that into the device, and that becomes the credential that you put forth, right? Like it is super, super good. It's much easier. Like I don't have to remember a password if I have my finger. I can just, once it's set up,
Yeah, and I think that that really, our discussion on how all of it's working behind the scenes, and it's like, oh, that's kind of confusing. I think that's really nice because you say like, okay, well, you can learn all that if you need to, but if
right?
you don't need to, here's
Right.
3 lines of code to make it all work, right?
It's so good.
Yeah,
It's so good.
yeah,
It's so good. You take any Spring Security app, upgrade to 6.4, which Spring Boot 3.4 will do for you,
yeah.
and then you just add these 3 lines of code, and now you have passkeys, and you can customize the white label sort of templates and stuff, just like usual.
Oh yeah,
but
yeah, because we provide like a default management UI. I think that's what you're saying,
yeah,
and a default login, and yeah, it'll take a little more if you want to customize those, and it'll vary depending on what you want your UI to look like, obviously. But that's nothing too scary
no,
unless you're a security person and you are allergic to JavaScript and CSS. So
I mean, aren't we all?
yeah,
Okay, so anyway, super good, super big feature. If the preceding discussion doesn't convince you of that, it's a big feature, but the footprint and what you have to know to get it working is super, super small. Just huge. And this is 5 years of development. And I think a lot of that tracks, like you said, the specs. There's these standards
yeah,
that have evolved, and they're in cooperation with a number of different vendors and participants, including but not limited to small mom and pop shop companies like Apple, PayPal, Google, Visa, Wells Fargo, NTT Docomo, small Dell, TikTok, small companies that I'm sure,
some people have heard of.
yeah, but also famously known to play fast and loose with money and security, right? Oh wait, no, they're not known to play fast and loose, right? That's exactly the point. These are companies that have a lot to lose by getting this wrong, and yet they're all gung ho and very, very much about proffering passkeys. And you might have noticed this if you've gone to Google or Apple or whatever. Tons of different websites out there in the last year or so have started to roll out these features, rather, allowing you to set up these passkeys. So you
Yeah,
can just log into your Google account with your, like you said, your fingerprint or your Face ID or whatever. I'm using Mac specific examples because that's my ecosystem, but
yeah, no, that
there are
makes
other
sense.
things. I'm sure with Android you could like use your elbow or something. I don't know, whatever.
I was just curious, and I took a minute to look through the commit history of the side project that we were experimenting on, and the commit was November 1st of 2019 was the initial commit. So that's when we started, and a
More
lot
than
of
a year.
yeah,
5 years and
it's
1 month.
it's been a minute, and a lot of people like, why does it take so long? Well, if you look at the passkeys, where WebAuthn and passkeys and stuff has started, and where it is today, it's moved a lot, and I think part of it is like waiting for the right opportunity, because adding WebAuthn before passkeys started becoming available for like people seeing it in other applications
Yeah.
was not really a very good user experience, because people are like, what is this? I have no idea like what to expect or see.
Right.
But now people are starting to see it in other applications. And what's more is the spec is actually still evolving, but it has continually evolved. So like trying to get some consistent APIs for our users, the Spring Security users, was quite challenging in the beginning because the spec was kind of moving all over the place at the time.
Right.
So I'm thinking we got kind of the sweet spot in terms of maturity and adoption with this release.
I mean, fingers crossed. It is super useful. I encourage people to try it out. Okay, that's probably the most. I mean, I mean, I don't mean to sound juvenile, but if you're listening to this and you get a chance, like, set it up in your program. I did a talk with Rob here at Spring One where we introduced passwordless Spring security apps, and
That was fun.
show this to your management. It'll blow them away. It is so cool. It is just such a cool, like, oh, the same thing I use to wake up my Mac to unlock my Macintosh is now also the thing I can use to unlock this web app. Super good. It's a winner. You'll make friends. That's a big feature. Another feature, one-time tokens, which is the brainchild of, among others, our friend Marcus de Correjo. And that's the what is that? One-time tokens are. I've heard it also called magic links, right? Like,
yeah, magic links. Yeah. So I mean, it's basically you enter something that's public, like your username or your email.
Yep.
And oftentimes they're the same thing. And then it basically, the trust is that only you have access to some form of communication, whether it be like a text message that gets sent to your phone or an email sent to your email address, something associated with that account.
Out of band.
It sends it out of band, and it sends it to you. And then you can use that, the authentication mechanisms for the out of band communication, such as, if you sent it to your email presumably requires some form of authentication, and then you get a token. That token expires after a little bit, but if you get to there and consume it, then that token is no longer able to be used anymore, but it gets you logged in. And I find that to be like a really great experience, because a lot of people, you go to a website and you're like, I haven't used this website in forever. It's,
right.
And the nice thing too is, like, the site is sending it to you and in your email, and it just makes it quite a bit easier. And it makes it harder for sites to do like phishing too, because it's like, okay, well, that site, it won't actually get the token, and the link in the email is not going to point to this site that's trying to phish you. It's going to point to the correct site.
Right. And good luck hacking like Gmail. They might be able to hack your website, but they're never going to be able to. Well, I say
it's going to be harder to hack the website, but it also, like, if they try to impersonate your website and you say enter your email address, and then they try to invoke your website from their impersonation site, your website is going to still send the correct link to the email address, and so when you click on it, it's not going to go back to the impersonated site, and they're not going to be able to log into with it.
Exactly.
And if it does get intercepted, it's a one-time token versus a password that may be reused everywhere. So that's another really cool thing.
It'll expire. Exactly.
Yeah, it expires. Yeah, one time, and it doesn't
Now, this is kind of interesting. I was apparently, so the National NIST, right? What is that? I don't know. NIST.
NIST,
whatever. Yeah. Good old NIST. NIST, surely. They had a really big old sort of publication, I think it was last year, on password standards and all that. And one of the things, I just saw them just like today or recently, they said basically that you shouldn't use SMS. Because iMessage to iMessage, that's encrypted. Right. Android to Android, that's encrypted. But RCS or regular old SMS is not encrypted. And so therefore it's not appropriate to use anything over regular SMS. So I like the example I've been using when I've been talking about this feature is with, like SendGrid for email and Twilio for like text messaging, right? But I guess maybe you should use an API that gives you a WhatsApp or iMessage or email or Telegram or Signal. Just don't send it over plain SMS, whatever.
Yeah. I think it's tricky to some degree, because again, you have to like think about your attack vectors and stuff, because you know, like
That's true.
the thing is like it's been proven that it's very easy to trick telco companies into like giving you access to someone else's like phone number. So like, oh, like, oh, I've lost my phone and I have a new SIM card. Could you please? And like that sort of process can be much easier than you would hope, honestly.
Yeah.
And so like that's been kind of a recommendation, especially when you're doing it from like, a more secure, something that you're trying to be more secure about. Now, like an average person out there, is that, something you're really worried about? And maybe not, like it's a case by case basis, right?
Yeah. I mean, the threat is only if they manage to hack both the website and the SMS.
Yeah.
That's unlikely for any given pair of,
Yeah.
you need both for the login to work. You need the website and the telco to be hacked,
Oh,
or the website and the email provider, which is why I think you get extra security there.
you see our comment there? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, like this
Yeah.
is
Well,
this.
hopefully they'll be able to. So we for those listening to the podcast, we got a comment here. I've got a project coming up where email is probably going to be the only user login we support, which hopefully this feature makes it easier.
Right.
So that's really cool.
We don't provide the integration with your email provider. Just use Java
Yeah.
Mail or use SendGrid or whatever. But we do provide this convenient Lambda that just hangs off the security filter chain DSL, the HTTP
Yeah.
security.
Yep. Do what you want with the token.
Yeah, it gives you a callback where you get a pointer to the current request plus a token, and you can just use that token to build up a URL.
Yep. And of
you
course,
can put that in
Spring has a
email.
mail template too to make that
Yep.
easier. So.
Yeah, exactly. The mail. Yeah, exactly.
Or you could use a REST client to some of these other services that do it as REST APIs. So yeah.
Yeah, look at that. This is
cool.
This is it. Hopefully, this might actually make somebody's well, I have no doubt it's going to make somebody's work a lot easier, right? We used to auto configure SendGrid in Spring Boot. I'm not sure if we still do. I have no idea. I haven't tried it in years, but
yeah,
maybe.
It's been a minute. I'm not sure either.
Oh, look at that. I just learned a thing. SMTP2Go has been super reliable for transactional emailing for me.
Oh.
So maybe is that just a can I just use that through SMTP? And I guess it's SMTP. It's not a REST API. It's actually just some
I'm
sort of
wondering if that is the REST API is the name SMTP.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Oh, that's like FTP NFS. Wait, what?
Yeah.
You can't put that in the name. It's confusing. Wait. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's an API. It has an API as well. It's the name of a provider.
Oh.
Okay. Well, I just learned a ton. This has been.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This is Christmas isn't even for another several weeks, so thank you for that. Yeah. So anyway, that one-time token support, super good. Super. And again, we have it right here. We have somebody who's already going to be able to get to production faster because of this feature landing in Spring Security 6.4 already. It's so good. It's so useful. And this one, you're right. I think this one, you were talking about the passkeys and how that might not be so natural. This one's pretty straightforward. Like,
yeah, it's basically password recovery flow that people are used to.
Yeah.
Without actually having to reset your password.
Super good. Huge fan. Exactly.
Yeah.
It takes the best parts of that flow and skips the nonsense. And
it really does.
I want to recover my password, but I don't actually want the password, and I don't want to change it. Just
so it's really funny because I know someone, they're not necessarily security savvy person, just kind of a non-technical person, and there was a website that I watched them log into, like, oh, I'd never remember this password, and so I always like just reset my password. So they basically just like change the password to something random that they never remember, and they don't intend on remembering because they never visit the website. But when they do, they just do a password reset and like use the link to log in, and they don't worry about the password at all.
They're not wrong.
Yeah.
Actually, this feature should be called you recover my password. Like, it's not me recovering my password. It's I'm teaching the website how to recover it for me.
Yeah.
I noticed that there's at least one other person who is super excited about this, and that's your dog.
Oh yeah, did you see? Did you see? Were
Some
you
of
able
the
to see him?
big bushy tail. Just
Yeah, yeah. He's coming in to check on me. He's like, why are you talking to that screen again? he he thinks that anyone that comes and visits is to visit him, and if he hears me
surely.
talking, anytime I'm in a meeting in my office, he comes to check to see if there's someone that is here to pet him.
Yeah. Well, I don't blame him. Okay, and then so okay, one-time tokens, super big feature. We did passkeys. There are some. You said what's that word you use? Refinements around
Refinements, yeah,
the ability to stand up to create meta annotations based on some of the
yeah.
security annotations.
Could I take a trip back in time to 6.3 and talk about a feature there that I think is
Yeah.
super awesome? Yeah,
Yes.
so our last release, Security 6.3, had some really exciting features. I'm obviously biased, but you can thank, again, Marcus and also Josh, not Josh Long, sorry,
Cummings.
Josh, but Josh Cummings
Yep. The
for
one
these
and only.
features. And we have the ability to add, so you're probably familiar with the pre-authorize annotation.
Right.
And it was pretty cool, but it like it made it hard to like reuse those annotations and like extract them out so you don't have Spring security everywhere. You could do it as a meta annotation, but it had to have every bit of the information on the annotation. So
Right.
now with Spring Security 6.3, you can add like templates to it. And what do I mean by like a template? You can add like a variable to the spell expression, and that that template gets filled out based upon values on your custom annotation. So like an example would be like, let's say I have a right now for OAuth, we have the ability to say has authority scope underscore message colon read. So that would see,
Right.
did they have the scope? A lot of people say, what's the difference between roles and authorities? Authorities can be lots of different things. Roles are a specific type. The way we typically identify those when there's a string only is having a prefix. Scope is a prefix for OAuth scopes. And so you
Right.
would say has authority, scope underscore message colon read. Well, that's nice. You could have an annotation then that has that information on it called has message read. But then you have to like create lots and lots of annotations in your code. Instead, you could create a has scope annotation, and you would say has authority scope underscore curly brace scope
Right.
curly brace, right? And then inside of that, and that annotation would have a property called scope. And since the variable in your template is called scope, and the name of the property on there is scope, now when someone uses the has scope annotation and fills out the scope entry, it will fill it out for you for your spell expression. And it can be like more complicated things too. It could actually, the variables can actually refer to method arguments, can
Right.
refer to return types, and all sorts of cool stuff. So that like I think that's super cool.
Me too. That also that coincided with another one of my favorite features ever, which is Marcus wrote this incredibly gnarly code for Graalvm native image compilation, tokenize the Spring expression language
Yes, yes,
and find bean references and make sure that we proactively register those beans for
yes,
reflection so
yeah,
that when you evaluated them inside of Spring expression language
yeah.
statements, they work.
Marcus is a legend. He's done a
Legend.
lot. He's done a
Yeah.
lot.
And
Yeah,
that feature, again, that's one of those things where if you're a user of Spring Security, you'll never know.
yeah, yeah.
You'll never know that your Spring expression languages expressions.
Are
There's just
just taken care of.
in GraalVM. I mean, it's actually
Yeah,
it worked before, obviously, but now this
yeah.
feature makes it work in GraalVM native images. It's super good. Anyway, carry on. Sorry.
Yeah, and like another one is so it used to be you could only like secure or easily secure beans, right? Like
Yeah.
something that's managed by Spring. But one of the things that people need to be able to do is like more fine-grained authorization. Like say you have a repository and the repository finds like a message object, right?
Uh,
And
yes.
so like and the message object is returned by a bean, but the message object is not a bean itself.
Oh, right.
And maybe on there you want to like secure something on that message object, like maybe there's like a sensitive bit of information on there, like sensitive message on there,
Right.
and you like need to do extra checks to make sure that only the right people are seeing the sensitive part. Like maybe it's
Right.
like a doctor, and the doctor has like private notes about a patient. Like the patient can read the public notes about it, but if they're commenting that this patient is difficult to deal with, they don't want that stuff being seen by the patient. So like, how do they secure that, right? And so
It's a
Springs,
part of the graph of objects that you want to like lock
yeah.
off behind escalated security.
So if you add an authorize return object annotation to the Spring managed bean, so you have like a message repository, find message, and then like you could secure the find message method. But how do you secure the object that's being returned? You can add authorize return object to the repository, so that when it gets returned, Spring proxies the repository to automatically proxy the object being returned with security. So it automatically adds security to the object being returned. And that's kind of cool, but it's like, well, what happens when that patient accidentally tries to access it, or maybe the UI just tries to access it? Do we want to do like try catch authorization exception everywhere? Or like that's kind of like, a lot of work. So what you can do is you can add another annotation that handles the access denied. And so like if someone tries to access on that message object the secure message portion, and they're not
Right.
allowed to, you could actually say, well, instead of returning that message or throwing the exception, just make it null or not available, or like you can
Oh,
transform the result. So you handle the exception rather than like propagating it up and needing to like try catch everywhere. And so like you add a at handle authorization denied annotation, and then you can specify a class that implements an interface, and then you can handle it however you want. Like another one would be like a credit card. Like maybe you have a payment object, and on that payment object it says get credit card number. Well, you don't want everyone to see the whole credit card number, but maybe like everyone that has access to the payment object can see like the last 4 digits of it. So you can handle it by creating a mask star 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 last 4 digits, right? So it handles it for you. It's super cool and convenient.
Yeah, totally. This kind of stuff is, this kind of stuff just shows that the security context can live with you to the furthest reaches of your object graph. That's super cool.
Yeah.
So all that's they got a ton of nice refinements in the component model there in Spring Security 6.4. What about the SAML stuff?
Yeah, the
I don't know
SAML
anything
stuff
about
is
this.
the SAML stuff is really cool. Like one of the things is that we use OpenSAML for
You're using 5 now, right?
yeah. So we've been on SAML 4, OpenSAML 4, and they're iterating pretty quickly over there. And when they iterate, you're getting less support for older versions. And so we're not on a major version yet, but we wanted to make sure that we had the latest and greatest available to everyone. And so we've added support for OpenSAML 5, and the default version that's brought in is 4, but you can just exclude it and use 5, and then everything still works. We've added some support for like determining entity IDs for the registration ID. So like determining which entity ID can be extracted out of the registration ID as a request parameter or a path parameter. Those are more refinements than big blaring features, I guess.
Right. They're cool.
But they're nice, and you can also sign like the relying party metadata. So that's kind of nice. You can sign that
That is nice.
metadata. And you can also cache the results from the relying party repository, so that you're not having to load that all the time. So
Super
yeah,
good.
it's pretty cool.
All that is long awaited, obviously. And
Yeah.
then and I don't know much about SAML, so moving on. I don't know anything. I have lived a blessed life. I mean, what little hair I still have is because I haven't done SAML. So one of the things I think that will be immediately useful, and I know that because I showed it to somebody yesterday, is the new token exchange support for the ye old REST client. So
Oh yeah.
traditionally, the REST template, there's been an interceptor that you could use to, if you're a OAuth login client and you've got a token and you want to send that token onward to a downstream resource server, you can do, like in Spring Cloud Gateway, you could do like a token relay, or you can use the REST template and there's an interceptor. But for the old REST client, you were just kind of on your own. You had to inject the authorized client manager and then get the token from there
Yeah.
and send it in the headers, and it was just tedious.
Yeah.
But now you can just do it out of the box, right?
Yeah, now we have symmetry between RestClient and the
REST
Webflux
template.
support. Yeah.
Yeah. And the template, right?
I don't think we really provide
Oh,
REST template support, and the reason for that is it didn't have the hooks
okay.
enabled. And so when we created WebClient, I collaborated with the framework team to talk to them about, like, how can we make it so that this API supports some of the stuff that Spring Security needs.
Right.
And so REST template was BR before Rob.
Right.
And so and it was before OAuth and many of these other things, to be fair. So
Yeah.
it wasn't really designed with that in mind, but
That's true.
Web
The
client
REST template came
was,
in pretty
and
much free.
lessons learned from web client integration were applied to REST client, and so we were able to apply those as well there. So REST client's been out for a while, but we've, with all the stuff that we've been working on adding, we were able to get that prioritized because, again, going back to what you were saying with, like, has it come from the community? Like, where are we getting this information from? People are saying, hey, we want REST client support. I know that we can use web client and it's a
Right.
workaround, but, like, it's just that we want REST client support. So
Yeah.
we
And
were
why
able to
not?
add
Now
it.
that we've got virtual threads, I have, there are equally viable paths both
Oh
ways.
yeah, yeah. And it definitely simplifies, trying to use a reactive stack within a imperative stack is, it works, and it definitely has its places when you're, like, aggregating lots of different REST APIs and stuff.
Right.
But there's definitely a lower barrier to entry using REST client if you're already using an imperative stack. So that's really really great.
Totally good. Super good. I'm a big fan. This has been, like I said, one of the, I mean, there's a million other small things that you should just go check the release notes. Okay. There's more, but we just looked at 5, I think,
Yeah, yeah,
big features, really, really nice features. I'm a big, meaty, amazing release. Congratulations.
yeah.
I appreciate you taking the time to sort of walk us through some of this stuff. Obviously, you're, for those of you just joining, this is Spring Security Lead Rob Winch. As we wind down, are you on the internet? Do you want to
Uh,
be found? And if so, where can people find you?
Well, as a security guy, I'd never want to be found, but you can find me on the internet. I think we already shared, like, my main point of
Oh,
contact
yeah.
these days is the Blue Sky.
Blue skies
Yeah,
smiling at me.
yeah. So that's kind of the main location. robwinch.bsky. Do you know how to pronounce? Like, do they have, like, a pronunciation for that domain?
Oh,
Uh,
no,
uh,
it never even occurred to me to try.
Yeah,
Biscuit.
well, it's interesting because I, like, go to that and I'm like, okay, well, how do I, like, I actually have to, like, it's hard for me to remember the domain actually because it's like, I actually think of it as, like, BS Kentucky. Oh, someone says Besky. Besky. Ah, I
I'll go
might
with
use
it.
that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Daniel. We'll do
Thanks,
that,
Daniel.
Besky. Yeah, yeah, Besky. I BS Kentucky because Kentucky's abbreviated
Right?
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I don't know. It's so yeah. That social. That's
Oh,
long. Rob Winch dot bsky dot social.
BS is an acronym for something that's not
Yeah.
quite friendly, so I won't say it. But yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be funny if that was actually a real name.
Well, that's what I
Yeah.
wondered. It's not typically blue sky BS, is
No.
it? So yeah.
Okay, so find him there. Maybe you'll change your. What am I doing? That's the wrong name. It's the wrong one. What just happened there? There. Find him there. Go. But maybe you'll change it. You'll get your authoritative DNS going.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I have. I used to like to do all that stuff, setting up my own servers and whatnot. But now I just like to deliver Spring security features, so I focus on that instead.
Well, okay. Then let the serve as formal notice that assuming you trust that the person in front of you speaking into this pixelated camera is actually Rob Winch, then this is his authoritative Blue Sky handle because he said so with his own non-AI generated mouth.
You know what they need though is they need like different ways to verify the domains so that you know, like it would be nice if I could do like a rwinch.github.io, right?
Ah, see, there you
Like,
go.
but you can't right now. They're only doing it through DNS. I'd like it to do like place this place this secure random generated file that returns this secure random generated code at this the root of this domain, and that will also verify you. And then I could do GitHub pages as my handle, like new feature request.
I'm a fan. I'm a fan. But also, you could just set up DNS.
I could do that.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Likewise.
So it's morning for you. I like to play a game. I'd like to share the game that I like to play with our audience. I have many people, at least in the United States, have heard of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego. I like to play that with Josh often. And so, where in the world are you today, Josh?
Melbourne, Australia.
Yeah.
So,
that's nice.
Yeah.
So what time is it for you right now?
4 in the morning. It's
4 in the morning.
It's time for me to retire.
Wow.
But this has been super good. I'm glad we had this conversation.
Thanks for. On that note, I think I'm going to bed. I'm tired. Just
yeah.
I mean,
they've been, good with supplying the coffee. So.
Oh, that's good.
Good. Coffee plus cool software. It's a wake up.
You know, I hear there's a coffee software YouTube channel.
Yes, right here.
Yeah.
Like and subscribe, everybody. Like and subscribe. Okay. Bye. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.